Hello and welcome to Sitcom Showdown, episode 111. My name is Jeffers. I'm one of your hosts, and over there is my brother Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Jeff. Hello, listeners.
We've been doing this since 2016.
Oof.
It's a fair old while now.
Yep.
Oh, blimey.
Long time.
And from time to time, Steve, we do like to bring in an Australian sitcom. Yeah.
This is one of those occasions.
This is one of those occasions. I should point out to the listener that you did text me at one point and say, "What are you making me watch?" So the sitcom in question, dear listener, is one called Pizza, sometimes called Fat Pizza, but that's because there was a movie, spin-off of the sitcom Fat Pizza, and the store is called Fat Pizza. I'm just going to call it Pizza. They're interchangeable. This is Series 3, Episode 5, and it's called Road Trip Pizza.
Mate, there's got to be some action. I love road trips. Davo's working. Sucked in, Davo!
Oh, Habib and Paulie have called in sick. You're doing all the deliveries.
It's from 2003 and it was broadcast on SBS television, which is a government-run station down here that's sort of a sister station to the ABC. And, it's there for multicultural broadcasting and it has changed over the years and it used to be quite news-heavy and things. Steve-o.
Well, it kind of makes me laugh that SBS, which you'd have to say is one of the more woke channels down
that's
under.
In my notes, yeah.
Produce something like this, but it was quite a while ago.
Well, very good point, and we're about to find out why over the next 4 hours.
Okay.
No, it won't be that long, I swear. Now, firstly, apologies to Kieran Scott, our listener, for whom I'm planning to cover Not Going Out, and I swear next time I'm going to do Not Going Out. So, I'm sending an audio thumbs up to Kieran there. Anyway, so I want to say about this episode, if you do look for it on YouTube, which is where we watched it, there is another episode from Series 1, also called Road Trip Pizza, because they go on a few road trips,
Right.
So don't confuse it with that one. This is Series 3, Episode 5. Now, this is an Aussie sitcom, as we said, and it's created by a chappie called Paul Fenech, and he's had a lot of sitcoms, as I'm going to tell you about in great detail. So it did run on SBS, and it ran from 2000 to 2007, which was 5 series worth, before, after quite a gap, moving to the channel 7 Mate, which is a very Aussie sort of thing. 12 years later, in 2019, for 2 more series, Series 6 and Series 7, Pizza has been described as being off-colour comedy. And, there you go. It is a bit off-colour.
Yep.
There's plenty of
description.
Vom, and I'm going to list everything that's just in this one episode. They have had success. I mean, anything that has 7 series, you've got to say it's successful. The synopsis of this particular episode is that Habib and Paulie call in sick to the pizza shop. Now, this leaves Bobo and Davo to handle all the work. And Davo's got to do all the deliveries. But anyway, so this they've called in sick to the pizza shop. But it's a lie, Steve. It's a lie. And they're off on a road trip to Melbourne with their mates Rocky and Tula. Tula is Habib's girlfriend. Anyway, in Melbourne, Paulie has another run-in with the kinky sex chick and her husband, while Habib and Rocky attack an AFL umpire. And back at the shop, Davo's forced to do all the deliveries and has 3 different sexual encounters with twins, some lesbians, and supermodel Claudia McPherson. So, that sounds like it's all happening in this episode, man. It sounds a bit saucy.
So, did we say they're in Sidders?
Yeah.
Sydney, yeah.
Yeah.
So they went to Melbourne in the previous road trip episode that you talked about?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know.
No, just when you mentioned that they returned to the kinky...
Oh, yeah.
The kinky lady.
Yeah, so maybe it was Melbourne the first time as well. Yeah, I think you could be right. Sorry, it did imply that, didn't it? I didn't watch the other.
It was implied.
Yeah. Cool. So before we get on to the cast, Steve, or even the recounting of this episode, I do need to do a couple of things. And the first one that you hinted at being a big disclaimer, and I'm issuing an official, is this our first official trigger warning? And I'll elaborate on that in a minute. And I also need to explain to our non-Aussie listeners about this show's creator, Paul Fenech, and the staying power of the Paulyverse, as I'm now calling it. So over the last couple of decades, right, he's racked up this massive sitcom count. So he's created and written and directed and starred in at least 3 different shows. Now we know it's 4, and they're just sitcoms. But then there's been other shows where they take those characters into real life settings, and do other things like that. And there's been different series as doing that aren't sitcoms. There's heaps of series of each of these. And historically speaking, right, I'm positing that this puts him up there with the greatest. I don't mean in terms of quality, right, Steve? I mean in terms of sheer number, with the greatest sitcom producers and writers that the nation has had. So that's inarguable, mathematically speaking.
Yes. In terms of getting commissioned and recommissioned.
Yeah. I've already had a few sentences that make Steve's eyes roll in disbelief. But anyway, I'm going to break this down for you later and crunch the numbers that compare Paulie's shows to the heavy hitters of Australian sitcomery, which will be fun. I think we'll enjoy this conversation, Steve. Whether the listener does, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, for our British viewers, I've tried to think of a parallel, and I haven't come up with a very good one. But I guess it's like, putting Yes Ministers and Steptoe and Sons and their writers into a comparison with Mrs. Brown's Boys. But if Mrs. Brown's Boys had the tone of Rab C. Nesbitt, I'm sure the British viewers are now just going, what? Only cheaper and nastier. So essentially, Paul Fenech's output, which I have called the Paulyverse, is the lowest of lowbrow humour. Would you agree with that, Steve?
Yep. I haven't seen much lower than this.
Okay, cool. It makes Bottom look intellectual. But it has been massively successful. And because of that success, yes, he's got this place at the table, about the discussion of the history of the Australian sitcom. So getting back to my disclaimer in detail now, this may not be one for the kids. So mums and dads, and this includes you when you listen back later, Steve, if the kids are in the car, they shouldn't be listening to this one. Yes. So this episode of Fat Pizza contains what would send very sensitive or, your truly hyper woke person off to their fainting couch. And I'm about to, yes.
Well, typically, if there is a sitcom with some kind of this subgenre, you will pick the cleanest one you can find for consumption on the podcast. Is that the case with this one, or is this how does it sit compared to the? It
depends. Yes. Okay. So if we're talking within pizza, no, this one's a little bit sensational, but reasonably standard fare. But pizza of the Paulyverse sitcoms is probably the mildest because and I'll get onto this, but the one he did after he was denied another series of another sitcom because it was too over the top and hardcore, they let him make another series which was 10 times worse, which boggles the mind. But we'll get onto that, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. So this episode, just this one episode alone, Road Trip Pizza, Series 3, Episode 5, contains drug use, including weed, pills, and other stuff, plus driving under the influence, I've said. Tons of fights, endless fights. There is weeing on dead animals that then come to life and punch the crap out of our protagonists. So we do also have what, if you're being very picky about it, could be called animal cruelty, if you consider weeing on dead animals cruelty. People getting run over and permanently injured and the associated bribery of police. Workplace bullying and violence. Many, many sex acts, including BDSM and rough sex bordering on domestic violence. Visits to pornography shops. Graffitiing, and I should say, Steve, very badly spelled graffiti while I'm at it. But graffiti's not known for its great spelling. Yep. And unconsenting photography, including down blouse and upskirt photos. So I'd say that's a list of objectionable behaviours, isn't it?
Oh, would they say?
Yes, it's all good, clean fun. Well, okay, it's all good, non-clean fun. So, as I said before, I am being sensationalist here, right? So I am, to illustrate a point, I'm painting it in its worst light. Yeah, and the point being that you could make a similar list for many sitcoms. In fact, someone, I don't know if I mention it in my notes later, but somebody said there was a trigger warning for something as light-hearted and harmless as Terry and June, and it may have had something to do with cigarettes and other cultural things that are now not acceptable. And I think, man, if Terry and June's getting trigger warnings, then I should issue one for Fat Pizza. But anyway, so if you were to take the young ones or something, for example, you could make a similar list to the one that I just read out and paint it in a very negative light. And people do this, and it's...
I was contemplating that as we watched a clip from Filthy Rich.
Oh, yeah?
Just before we started recording. I thought, that's in its own way.
Oh, yeah. References
contains plenty of off-colour stuff.
Yes. Oh,
why is that more consumable than this?
Yeah, well, if you can put your finger on that particular...
Well, maybe we'll come back to that.
Yeah. For the record, Steve-O, I'm not offended by any of this content. It takes a lot to offend me. Even the anti-white stuff that takes the mickey out of the Anglos, as they always say in this show. So, dear listener, if you do find yourself getting easily worked up about that stuff, now is definitely the time to give this particular edition of Sitcom Showdown a pass. Now, I am going to trash talk this show a lot, as I've already put the boot into it a little bit, and Paul Fenech's other shows, but I have watched all of them multiple times. I own DVDs. I like this stuff. I've watched it all heaps, and I was 20 years old when this came out. And in fact, when the first series of Pizza came out, I think I was 18. So because it's not aimed at the kids, you know, if you're getting your 18, 19, 20-year-olds at that point, which I was, you know, that's your perfect audience. And that's why I went down a hit, because I was living with my friends and we all just thought this was hilarious. Perfect age to discover the show. Now, normally, Steve, we get onto the synopsis right about now, but all I want to do before we do that is talk about the Paul Fenech versus sitcoms within Australian sitcom history, and I've done a very limited bit of research into it, and I'm going to compare it to your working dog production team, which I'm just going to put under the banner of Rob Sitch, the great Rob Sitch, because Rob Sitch, for listeners I should point out, is a lot of his output's been on the ABC, which is another government broadcaster, just like the BBC, but in Australia. And then on the commercial stations, you had Riley and Sattler, who in the 80s had a lot of episodes of sitcoms that were very popular sitcoms, like your Kingswood Countries and your Hey Dads, and I'm going to get into all of this. So I'm stacking up Paul Fenech's output against the most successful Australian stuff. Any comments before I launch into this, Steve?
Nope.
So SBS, this refers back to what you were saying before. So they do shows dealing with and created by people of, you know, non-Anglo ethnicities, telling the stories that they want to tell, all about varied experiences and people and communities of migrant backgrounds and stuff, right? So it just so happened that Paulie, when he was brought on board by SBS, he'd done this pilot about working in a pizza store, and Bobo, the owner of the pizza store, is Italian. And this episode we're talking about is from Series 3, when Sleek the Elite wasn't in it. Sleek the Elite was in Series 1 and 2 and then later series of Pizza, and he was the Lebanese lover and all that. And Rocky, who we'll hear about, calls himself the Lebanese Rambo and all this sort of stuff. So, yes, this is what Paulie brought in, this pizza sitcom. And he wanted to tell these stories, which obviously has got tons of hot cars and hot chicks and hot drugs and hot music and mad action and mad fights. And he's appealing to all the lowest common denominator instincts, right, in this incredibly over-the-top way. And he did it with this microscopic budget and a lot of times with regular people who weren't actors. And it does show. It shows real bad. But this is what he was doing. He was nominated for 4 Logie Awards, never won, but it does say something that it was nominated, and he did 4 sitcoms over a couple of decades. Now, Pizza is the one we're dealing with, 56 episodes, 2 movies, 7 seasons. Then he moved on to Swift and Shift Couriers, which was 2 seasons, 19 episodes, and that ran from 2008 to 2011, after Pizza packed it in 2007. Now, in this one, he brought in very experienced professionals, so sort of what you might call the stars, Ian Turpie, and Amanda Keller. And Amanda Keller and Terps are quite respected. I wouldn't consider either of them actors. They're TV presenters, but they're good all-round, highly experienced people, and they were what I would say is very good in Swift and Shift. And I think they were made to look even more good because they're against this massive cast of about 34 people, who most of which are just non-actors.
Yep.
Anyway, that's Swift and Shift Couriers. And then after that, Howzos had 30 episodes over 4 series from 2011 to 2013. And then, Steve, he did one I've never watched in 2023 called Darradong Local Council for 8 episodes.
Yep.
Okay. Bear with.
No, that one sounds potentially a bit more interesting.
It's wading into Rob Sitch territory. Now
there was a sitcom called Grassroots about
yeah.
local government in Australia, and that was quite good.
I'll be bringing that up.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, fantastic. So he's done 113 sitcom episodes plus all those extras and a few movies. And as I said, Houzo's makes pizza look like To the Manor Born, really. So it's pizza's pretty tame compared to Houzo's. Let's move over now, Steve, to the Working Dog production team, some of Australia's finest sitcoms. We've covered Utopia, dude, in Sitcom Showdown 17. That was brought to the table pretty early.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Utopia and its ilk?
I think that might be their longest running series. Have they done four seasons of that now? Something like that?
There was a pretty recent one.
Yeah, it's I'd say the quality of all their shows is very high, but that's a classic, that one.
Oh, true. And Frontline. How good is Frontline? That was amazing.
Yep.
Because Frontline sort of did this mockumentary style way before The Office. But anyway, I've chosen the Working Dog stuff, which I'm putting under the Rob Sitch umbrella because it's a similar output, but over on the ABC. Frontline, 39 episodes, 3 series. And of course, that was Rob, and he co-wrote it with Tom and Jane and Santo and the whole crew there. Utopia, 40 episodes, 5 series.
5 series.
5, yeah, man. Yep. And Hollow Men, which I've not seen beyond clips, and that's 12 episodes over 2 series.
Yeah, I watched that one too.
A sitcom they did, which I'm not counting, Steve, for obvious reasons, is Funky Squad.
Why?
The
Why
first time I watched Funky Squad, I thought, this is great. But then, it is crap. So I'm not counting Funky Squad because that's taking the mickey out of 70s American cop shows. And I wouldn't even consider it a sitcom for my taste. No offense to the Working Dog team. But if you wanted to, you could throw in Funky Squad. And there's Pacific Heat, which is animated. Right. So I haven't watched that either.
That sounds a bit like a
Yeah.
cop show from the US as well.
It does. So that brings their tally up to 92 episodes of superb quality. But that's very much a shared load, right? So while Rob Sitch might be starring in it, and he's writing stuff and he's doing things, Paul Fenech writes it, produces it, directs it, and stars in it, which is a very heavy workload. And he's got to wrangle all these non-actors and people who are, you know what I mean? So whereas the Working Dog team are very professional, I'm not saying Paulie's not professional. So they came out of the university review sort of sphere, whereas Paulie's come straight off the streets. So in a way, I guess it's like the young ones versus the Oxbridge types in the UK. So now we're going to look at the Aussie sitcoms in the commercial TV realm, away from all this government-funded stuff, dude. And the heaviest hitters of Australian sitcom history in my lifetime were Sattler and Riley, who I talked about before. So they're sort of like the extremely cut-rate budget version of Crofton Perry or Crofton Lloyd. Way less good. So Riley and Sattler moved into situation comedy in 1978. But their big hit, Steve, which I have all of on DVD, is Kingswood Country, running from 80 to 84.
Kingswood is a car.
Yeah, Kingswood is a car, Holden Kingswood. It won Logie Awards for Best Comedy in 82 and 83. Hey. 89 episodes, Steve, of Kingswood Country over 6 seasons. In 81, Sattler and Riley had a newspaper sitcom called Daily at Dawn.
Not heard of that one.
In 84, they wrote a sitcom set in Antarctica called Brass Monkeys, which ran for 13 episodes. Now, I saw an episode of that as a kid, and I remembered the line, and I could have sworn it was Shane Bourne, but it turned out not to be. Talking about saber-toothed penguins, because they're down there in the Antarctica. Don't go out there, the saber-toothed penguins will get you, and this stayed with me, but you couldn't find it anywhere. But I did manage to find an edition on YouTube, which was tolerable. It had Paul Chubb in it, and so I went down a Paul Chubb rabbit hole. But again, I'm getting off topic. In 1997, Riley and Sattler created the sequel to Kingswood Country, Steve's favourite, Bull Pit, which ran for 26 episodes. There you go. So I'm going to take out of that partnership of Sattler and Riley, I'm going to take Gary Riley, right? Because if you include Hey Dad, that's another huge sitcom.
Yep.
Then he wrote around 333, he wrote precisely, but I could be wrong, 333 sitcom episodes across 5 or 6 different shows. Now that's massive when you consider that these are series that generally do 6 episodes or 8 episodes or 18 episodes or something. Anyway, they are groan-worthy, but they were massively successful. Again, massive success. Any thoughts on that, Steve, to give my voice a break?
No, I don't know a lot about these shows because they're on commercial TV, which we pretty much didn't watch back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so heard of them, obviously, but not watched a lot. Mm.
But they were, everyone knew Kingswood Country and
Oh,
Hey
yeah.
Dad and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So this is where we get to good old grassroots, Steve-O, with the brilliant Jeffrey Atherton of Mother and Son fame. So Jeffrey Atherton, this is just a side note. He had 3 sitcoms at least. With, you've got Mother and Son, obviously. Then you've got Grassroots, which was 18 episodes of Grassroots over 2 seasons. And Eggshells, which was, again, about a divorced person and something. 15 episodes over 2 seasons. I'm using the word seasons and series interchangeably. And Mother and Son had 42 episodes over 6 seasons. So you've got your Atherton, your Sitch, and your Riley and Sattler. And now, of course, because of the last few decades of work, you're Paulie Fenech. And none of the other people or teams had to do everything themselves, whereas he did, including stunt work that often saw him in incredibly precarious positions and all that sort of stuff.
So,
yes.
we're going to talk about Acropolis now.
Oh, I'd love to talk
and
about Acropolis
the
now.
ethnic lineage
Yeah, please do.
of pizza. Well, I don't really know a whole lot other than Acropolis Now, written by a bloke called Nick.
Yeah, Nick
what's
Giannopoulos, he's been in Pizza
Yeah,
as a taxi
as you'd
driver.
expect. But he started out, well, that whole team started out in a play, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was called Wogs Out of Work.
Wogs Out of Work.
Yeah.
And then we had the TV show Acropolis Now, which was, very, very popular show.
Oh, I've got the entire box set. I love Acropolis. Yeah.
Yep, that went for 3 or 4 seasons or something like that.
Yep.
Well, after that, they continued doing the stage show and all
Oh, yeah.
sorts of bits and pieces. So one that's even further back, which is Home Sweet Home, which had the character Enzo Bocelli.
Oh, yes. Now, we've
Yeah,
talked
who
about
was-
this on Sitcom Showdown before.
Yes, because John Bluthal
Oh, yes.
was later on.
Yeah. Oh, well, Vicar of Dibley,
Vicar of
John
Dibley.
Bluthal.
Yes.
Yeah. He's fantastic character actor, and he was heavily involved in the British comedy scene as well. But
So there is somewhat a lineage of ethnic sitcoms in Australia,
totally.
of which this is probably the most recent crop.
Yeah, I reckon you're right. And normally it's traditional for you and me, Steve, before we talk about the cast, or just after, to say, when did you first see this show? Which for me was, in 2000, 2001, 2002.
I first saw this show about a week and a half ago.
But you must have seen it at some point to know that you didn't fancy it.
Well, yeah, I guess I must have potentially put it on at some point and then switched it off soon afterwards.
Fair enough,
But
Jay.
yeah, I guess that happened.
So what were your thoughts on all of this? If I had said to you, Steve, do you know who Paul Fenech is and can you name some of his sitcoms, would you have had any sort of inkling?
Well, I wouldn't have made the connection with Paulie's name, but obviously I knew that pizza was a thing, and then there was a movie or two, and then they moved on to make Housos. So
Yeah. Right. Anyway, I'm going to move on to the cast now. If we haven't got,
Yeah.
cool, man.
Let's
Because
do
I've lost control. Sorry, dear listener. The cat came into the room, somehow managed to open the door. Don't know how that happened. So we've talked about Paul Fenech playing Paulie, as I mentioned. Now he's playing a pizza driver in this show. He's sort of the main character of the show, but it's shared around quite equally. Now, Habib is played by a dude called Tahir Bilgic. I love Habib, and I've got tickets to see Habibi, or to put it more accurately, Tahir, in less than a fortnight, Steve. So I'm off to one of his gigs, which is going to be tremendous.
what do you mean to hear?
Yeah, his name's Tahir.
Oh, right.
Tahir.
Thinking, what kind of a gig is it where you can only hear them?
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Ka-ching. Well done, Steve. That was a good one. Yes, so I'm off to see
Sorry.
Tahir. I can understand now how that wouldn't make any sense. Yes, so I'm going to see his do stand-up live. He tours around. So he's a stand-up comedian, and that's how he came to the show.
Yep.
Now, amazingly, he was also part of a non-Paul Fenech sitcom called Here Come the Habibs, which aired on Channel 7 in 2016. And there was 2 seasons of Here Come the Habibs, featuring 2 ex-Pizza alumni, Rob Shahadi, who we're going to hear about in a minute, and Tahir. let's move on from Tahir and move on to Rebel Wilson, Steve.
Yep.
Do you know Rebel Wilson?
Yes. I was surprised that she popped up in this.
So, Rebel plays Tula, and I've described her as a food-obsessed second-generation ethnic girl who seems to love bad boys, and she snares Habib and makes him her man because, we know Habib talks a lot about being a gangster dude, and he does do a bit of drug dealing and phone stuff and fencing and things, and so I suppose he is a bad boy criminal, but he is a bit of a wuss, Habib. So, she thinks he's a big tough gangster, and anyway, we won't get into that. But aside from getting her start as Tula over several seasons of Pizza, and even then you could just see her talent. So Rebel got a scholarship to go to New York to train with the Second City improv comedy troupe.
Right, okay.
So she clearly had talent, right? And she has broken through to become this big star in Australian terms. So she's been in all the big US movies like Bridesmaids and Pitch Perfect, plus the 2 Pitch Perfect sequels. She was in Pain and Gain. I think The Rock was in Pain and Gain, wasn't he? Something like that.
Hello.
She was in Grimsby, and she was in Jojo Rabbit. So there you go. Plenty of stuff, right? But she is famous now. But a nice bit of triv, which I thought was really cool with Rebel, is that when she was living in Hollywood, she lived there for 3 years with Matt Lucas. That's interesting, isn't it?
It is. So he must have crossed the pond to try and make him a name for himself over there.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I wonder who had to pack and unpack the dishwasher and all these sorts of things.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do now. And on that note, we'll move on to Jabba. Now, I think his name's Jason Lewis or something like this, but Jabba.
If I ever score an interview with either of them all, we'll be sure to ask them who was loading the dishwasher.
Jabba, a single name celeb up there with, all the great single name celebs like Cher. He's a former TV presenter, right? So he's.
What are we talking about? A character now, or
he
actor?
plays Dave O'Dinkum,
right? Okay.
In Pizza, and you can tell from the
Jabba
name
is the actor.
So he's the token white guy pizza deliverer, and his whole entire life revolves around smoking pot, which is why I liked him so much. And so in Housos, however, he plays Dazza, who's very similar as you'd expect. Anyway, Jabba, the real life person. He started presenting, when he was maybe 20 years old. He was on Foxtel's Channel V with their music stuff. And so he was hosting stuff like, The Joint and Jabba's Morning Glory and all this. And so this is where the music artists would come on and play a song, and he'd interview them and all that sort of stuff. So at the time, it was, he had Pink on the show and Beastie Boys and all these sorts of people. Rob Shahadi, Steve, plays Rocky, who I've described as a big, violent Lebanese gangster dude. Now, he's a former rugby league guy who did incredibly well throughout his whole youth, playing on all the school teams. And however, his career really sort of didn't get a chance to get started due to injuries. And then he got this role in Pizza. He's extremely volatile, Rocky. If you look at him, he'll just smash you. You know what I mean? And all he thinks about is chicks and smashing people. And now, in real life, supposedly he's a stand-up comedian and an event MC, and I assume he makes a living from this. But so good on him. He's been on Celebrity Apprentice Australia and Celebrity Name Game and all this sort of stuff, so he's fine in these shows. I'm not sure I'd call him an actor as such, but that's no biggie in the Pizzaverse, in the Paulyverse, because so few people are. Now, lastly, with the cast, there's a dude called Johnny Boxer who plays Bobo, the boss of the pizza store, Bobo Gigliotti.
Gigliotti?
Yes, or Gigliotti.
Okay.
I'm bound to get this stuff wrong, Steve. Now, he's, in real life, formerly a prison inmate who became a bouncer and a security guy when he got out. And he met Paul Fenech, who brought him into Pizza, and he's done all sorts of stuff since then. So he's been in a movie, which I've never heard of, called Son of a Gun with Ewan McGregor.
Huh.
And he's been in a Baz Luhrmann flick of some description. I don't know which one. So he does a bit, but he's a genuine tough dude who would, should I say, he would cut you up with a chainsaw like Bobo? I probably shouldn't say that. That could be defamatory.
I wouldn't go there.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go there either. Strike that one from the record. Anyway, my favourite character
Derek,
is...
what's his name?
Enormous Derek.
Enormous Derek.
Tank James with his chainsaw. Yeah. That'd be an interesting cage match, wouldn't it? One chainsaw each. Tank James versus Johnny Boxer.
To the death.
Oh, man. Guest stars, Steve.
Yep.
Warwick Capper.
Oh,
Yeah, and Annalise Brackinsek and Totty Goldsmith. And yes, that's her actual name, dear British listener. Yes. So
yes, well, certainly Warwick. I recognised him straight away.
yeah. Famous footballer. Famous Australian rules footballer.
So was he the full forward for, now I'm losing the listeners, full forward for the Sydney Swans?
Yeah, okay, maybe he was. Yeah, dude. I'm not strong on the footy. Annalise Brackinsek, she was a model, and she sort of stumbled into it while she was at uni, intending to, have an actual career doing stuff, and then she got sidelined into this modelling and all that for obvious reasons, and that's sort of what she ended up just kept doing because, there was demand for it, and then sadly, she died all too young, in her 40s, and the police ruled, no foul play or anything like that. And so I don't know if it was just a tragic heart attack or something or what the hell went on. I didn't look into it too much, but I do know she died. And Totty Goldsmith maybe she was an all-round entertainer, but certainly a member of the Shantuzis, if you remember them, Steve.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They hit the Australian charts on one or two occasions.
I do recognise their name.
Yeah, and
I certainly remember the Shantuzis.
Oh, yeah. So she's playing the kinky married chick from Melbourne in this particular episode.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Annalise and Warwick, as you're about to find out, listener, were getting it on in a rental car that kicks off this show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Let's have a little clippy poos finally and get into the enormous synopsis for this show.
This is one thing Sydney does not have. We don't have culture like this, mate. Look at this. See that? That's art, mate. That represents like artistical, it's, an interpretation of them, like the artists. Man, it's a big cock. Yeah, and them things on the side, that represents the zipper that holds it in. They did a sculpture of my cock, bro. They didn't even get my permission for it.
If like that's the penis and that's the zipper, then this tunnel must be the pussy.
Oh my god, Habib! You are like so funny.
I know.
You should be like a comedian.
I know.
Yeah, so just should have trusted my instincts. He was the full forward for the Swans.
Nice.
1980, played for them 1983 to 1987. 77 games, 279 goals, and he was 4 times their leading goal kicker. That's never making it into the final edit.
Yeah. Yes, of course it will. Right, so we're into the big synopsis. So this episode, Steve, has a cold open with Paulie hiring a car, right? Now, as we were about to find out, this is being done with a fake ID, hiring a big, powerful car to go on this road trip to Melbourne. Anyway, so...
Why is he doing it with a fake ID, though?
Probably because they're going to screw up the car. And if
they're going to write it off.
Yeah, possibly so, yeah. So the attractive young lady at the rental desk, she's fetching the keys, right? And so for some reason, they're in a filing cabinet and she has to bend over in her short skirt to get the keys. Now, at this point, Steve, this is 2003, right? And, we didn't have smartphones. They were years away, but it's a beepy Nokia, push-button phone. However...
Flippy phone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. The flippy phone. This is one of the first ones with a camera. And so because he's not the world's tallest chappy, he has to lean over the counter and extend his arm out to get sort of what is basically an upskirt shot of her. He's taking sneaky bum shots of this girl. Paul, at this stage, the actor, he was in his late 20s playing a dude of about 25. Extremely physically fit person. But his character of Paulie, all he thinks about is cars and sex, basically. And he's he's a teetotaler of sorts when it comes to drugs and stuff like that. So his character is actually quite clean cut. I'm not saying he's moral, but he's clean cut when it comes to drugs, and he doesn't get too hella pissed if he's going to be driving around.
Is he the one driving, though, when they're on the road?
Yeah. He's the one driving when they're on the road, which is helpful because he's the only one who's not on drugs.
Okay.
So there you go.
Makes sense from that point of view.
Yes. So then he walks out of the office having done that, and he's going to collect this car with the keys that the girls just handed him. So he sees another attractive young lady in a tight skirt and a tank top struggling to get this huge suitcase into the back of her vehicle she's hiring. So he goes, "Oh, do you want a hand?" And of course, as he's giving her a hand, he's snapping all these down blouse shots as he does so, which is extremely dodgy behaviour. And then he gets a call from Habib, and Habib goes, Paulie, you lad, did that fake credit card work? And so, when Paulie was doing the transaction for the rental car, he was Mr. Sam Booker. So Paulie says, yes, it did work. And you should see the sneaky shots I'm getting, man, he tells Habib. Now, at this point, he sees two people making out in a car, in the car park of this car rental agency. And it's Dwayne Carey, the famous footballer, played by Warwick Capper. Now, Wayne Carey was a famous footballer who played for North Melbourne, I believe.
Yep.
And Claudia McPherson, the supermodel, which is clearly a mix between Claudia Schiffer and Elle Macpherson. So Paulie tries getting photos of them in the act, and he manages to succeed, but Dwayne Carey does start to brawl with him, and the biffo is on.
And he was taking them with the intention of selling them on to some gossip mag.
Totally. Anyway, so this Dwayne Carey's the footballer. He's a married man, and he's going to lose everything, Claudia's not worried about this. She just doesn't want the photos getting out because they're candid shots. There's no airbrushing, no fancy lighting to help her skin. It's bad for her brand. And she goes, these photos are going to make my thighs look massive. So she doesn't care about his marriage or anything like that, which is fine. They get what they deserve, Steve-O. Anyway, Paulie gets a bunch of great shots with the footballer and the supermodel, and he escapes. And he gets out of there by doing a huge burnout, which is standard fare in pizza, in this rented car. And there's smoke going everywhere. And he's probably used half a tyre just doing the burnout. But anyway, he's going to sell the photos to No Idea magazine, which is basically New Idea magazine down here in Australia. And then we get the opening credits.
You can just imagine what the rental company's thinking as he takes off out of the car park. Yeah.
What's the theme tune, Steve, to pizza?
Oh, stuffed if I know.
Oh, really? Oh, stuffed crust if you know. It's That's Amore. I think it's sung by Dean Martin in this case.
Oh, classic.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, Married with Children has got Sinatra, and they've got Dino.
Yeah. It's not to be sneezed at. Back in the action, after the opening credits, the caption says, a road trip begins, 10:47 a.m. Now, Rocky's in the passenger seat at this stage. They're on the road, and his entire delivery is shouting, right? So he's doing his usual shouts. He's saying, Paulie, man, I feel so good about this trip, bro. And he says, I want to bang some Melbourne chicks and stuff. Because, as I said, that's all these characters care about is chicks and fights and drugs. In Rocky and Habib's case. Anyway, so they're on their way to Habib's place, and they're going to pick him up. Now, Paulie tells Rocky to be careful of the Melbourne chicks, bro. And he recounts the tale of this married lady he got involved with, who was into all this kinky sex stuff until her husband caught them in the act. Now, this is a flashback. And her husband is this huge Serbian dude who runs and acts exactly like Alexei Sayle. Did you see his running later in the episode that we're going to talk about? He's running down the road like this. And for all the world, he just reminded me so much of Alexei Sayle. Now, this is interesting, Steve. So, in real life, this dude is Con Callias, right? Now, he was in The Castle, which is a fantastic Australian film by the Working Dog team. So, bringing them back into it. In real life, he's a barrister who became a magistrate. So, he's been working in the law for over 30 years. But in this show, the magistrate of real life plays a kinky ex-husband who beats his wife with wrestling moves. I think she gets off on it, and so this wife is Totty Goldsmith. So he catches her cheating, and I think this is a game they play, and he's putting all these wrestling moves on her, which, in my list before, I've listed that as domestic violence.
So Paulie's warning his friend about these crazy Melbourne chicks.
Yeah.
But he's basically planning on
revisiting,
meeting up with this crazy lady
yep,
himself when they arrive in 5 hours' time or something. Okay.
Yeah. It's a high priority for him, I think. Yeah, he doesn't learn his lesson, does he? From last
Apparently
time
not.
with his flashback where he nearly got killed. So with that flashback finished, Paulie and Rocky arrive at Habib's, and we see Habib there with Tula, and she's got all these bags, and so they're paying out on Tula.
Come on, hurry up.
Oh my God!
Hey, look at Habib. It's like he's running a pig farm. Man, he's that much under the thumb from this chick. She's got him using the pill and the female condom.
Hey, Paulie, at least he's got a train, man. She's carrying his bags at least. That's the good thing.
Man, you know, I'm glad she's not coming on this trip.
All right, thank God.
Hi, Paulie. Hi, Rocky. Hey, how long does it take to get to Melbourne? Oh my God. Okay, I just want to tell you that I get a little bit car sick, but it's okay. Can we please change the music? I brought along my Spice Boys CD. Huh?
It's supposed to be
A boys' trip. Yeah. But it's a nightmare for the boys, as you say, to have her along, because it's supposed to be a boys' trip, and now they're stuck with Tula in the back seat with Habibi. But see, even Paulie and Rocky don't say, what are you doing? Get out of the car. We don't want to take you along. So they have got some base level of politeness. Now, in terms of costume, Steve, you will have noticed that Habibi and Rocky, they've got matching gangster tracksuits, right, which is white with black trim. Because, you know, they like to think of themselves as Lebo gangsters, their own term, by the way. In Housos, where they play slightly different characters, they've got a specific gang name, which is the Sunnyvale Assassins.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
They look a bit Ali G,
Very much in the Ali G mould.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think they're Kappa tracksuits, I'm not sure. But finally, Steve, we're skipping over to the pizza store to see Davo for the first time. Now, remember, Davo's a tallish Anglo pizza driver. He's got this short blonde hair. He's obsessed with weed. He speeds around in this tiny, tiny little blue Mini. Anyway, we're not at the pizza store. I think we're at the petrol station. But Davo's license plate is Cone, which gets me every time, and I just find it hilarious. Anyway, sadly for Davo, who as always is stoned, the cops have pulled up at the service station, and they've pulled up in the thing closest to the office, so he has to walk past them in order to pay. And we hear poor old Davo, stoned as hell, and apparently he's got, you know, like an ounce of weed down his trousers, in his jocks or whatever, and he's desperately trying to keep his cool, and it can only be done justice with a clip.
All right, relax, Davo. Those cops aren't looking at you. But relax, it's cool. You're cool. They're uncool. Just walk over, act natural, don't look at them. Oh, I looked at them. Oh, shit, they can smell the hooch in my balls. They can smell it for sure. They're trained. They're cops. Just relax and breathe. Breathe in, out, breathe. Act natural, man, act natural.
Excuse me, sir. You're our 1 millionth customer. You win $1,000. You Anglo bastards always get your hands on the cash. Yeah!
So what I love there, Steve, is that aside from his inner monologue, right, you get the heartbeat, boom, 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 and sort of the scraping of the headphones. So I'm going to risk going. You know what I mean? So as he's moving around, you can hear sort of the foam. Yeah, anyway. And that sort of adds to the effect really, really nicely. So that's a brilliant bit of sound work there. Do they call that Foley? It's a nice bit of Foley. So Davo wins $1,000, and these very puzzled policemen and the Indian petrol dude look on. And our man there working in the petrol station, who appears in Pizza a lot, he calls Dave an Anglo bastard. And that they always get the cash. And so, as I said before, I love any scene with Davo, just like I love any scene with Habib, because out of the entire cast, they're very good at body language, which I think I mentioned before, and we saw it in this scene here. But anyway, back in the car on the road trip, Paulie, Rocky, and Habib and Tula, they're out in the country now, and because we get the captions at the bottom of the screen, and they call it the Bumpkin Lands, and this is something you often get in Pizza, because they reckon, you know, it's just filled with Australian hillbillies. Anyway, the time is nearly midday.
I find it hilarious that these guys are looking down on the Australian hillbillies.
Yeah, exactly. So Tula gets car sick, which is not good news, and she pukes out the window. But because the puke smells like kebabs, it makes Habib horny. So him and Tula start making out on the back seat, and this pushes Rocky over the edge. Yeah, you're shaking your head here, Steve. So you're getting, you know, a vomiting girl, which then causes her to make out with her dude in the back seat, and then Rocky starts popping ecstasy pills because he's so turned off by this hideous sight that he just needs something to change his mindset. So he's taking an Eckie to cope. Any comments on that one, Steve?
No, I think it speaks for itself, that scene.
Okay, now I'm going to mention the music here, Steve, because the techno is pumping away at this point, and they're speeding along, and it all adds to the chaos. So then when Rocky takes the pill, we get this shift in mood to party time, right? And instantly we hear the Jacksons' absolute classic, Can You Feel It, kick in. And that, does a really good job. And being a government broadcaster, I think they've got blanket permission to use whatever music they want in any way they want.
I half wondered because the scenes are really short.
Yeah.
In this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, are they getting around the copyright issues with all the music they're using?
By only using a fraction?
Yeah.
No, and I'd love to have a copyright person tell us if this is still the case or if it was ever the case. But I do think your BBCs and your ABCs and your CBCs, if they're government broadcasters, because they set the rules, they can use whatever the hell they want. Now, maybe I've not phrased that correctly, but that's pretty much the spirit of it. Anyway, so you get the Jacksons, Can You Feel It? Can You Feel It? Kick in, and then they go into Everybody's Free, which was this huge club anthem back in the day. So I point this out to say that music is a massive part of pizza, which you wouldn't find, music in Hey Dad or bloody Utopia or anything like this.
Yep.
And it's just track after track after track of all these killer tunes that everybody knows. And we're going to talk about this a little later on. And it's part of why the show was such a big hit with, the youngsters and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, back in the car, Rocky, who was absolutely disgusted a minute ago at the prospect of Habib and Tula making out, all of a sudden, because he's, on the happy pills, he's looking at them. And what they've done is, they've changed the actors. So we still know it's Habib and Tula, but they're all of a sudden these cute, beautiful looking people who are making out and sort of, winking at Rocky. And he's going, yeah, man, I'm having fun watching this.
The ecstasy takes effect in about
3 seconds.
3 seconds.
Yep. And his eyes go bing, and they're all red. So he's got these glowing red eyes, like a Sith.
Okay.
Yes.
Does Sith still do that?
I don't know, dude. I'm sure Anakin had glowing red eyes at one point. So, yeah, Rocky's into it now. But Paulie, of course, he's not on drugs, and he's not puking, and he's not making out, and he just has to drive. And this road trip's going horribly wrong, and Paulie's not a happy camper. We cut back to Davo doing a delivery. He's just at a suburban house, right? And he's arriving in the middle of this domestic argument between two very alternatively dressed lesbians with insane hairdos, and they're wearing their pink leather and fishnets and piercings and the whole lot, right? So one of the ladies grabs Davo and starts snogging him to make the other one jealous, because they're clearly having a breakup out in the front yard here. And the jealous one starts giving Davo a load of full-on abuse. So it's time for another clip.
God, look at where your fucking hand is on his greasy, slimy little pizza-ridden balls. You are fucking foul. You're a wicked wench.
Oh, wicked! I've just turned a lesbian. That's 7 years good luck.
You seen his ass crack hanging out, eh? That's his coin slot, mate. That's where he warms his pizzas.
You're a man of the world, Jeff. Have you ever met a lesbian that was dressed even remotely like this?
No. But I don't get out much. And this is going to come up later on, Steve, but the listener should know that both of us were pizza drivers. I carried on the fine family tradition after you delivered pizzas, and I thought, maybe I can do that. And amazingly, they gave me a job. And I've never encountered anything like that on any of my deliveries in my younger years. What about yourself? Nah. Bit unrealistic, isn't it?
And it was a daytime delivery as well. I mean, I used to do deliveries to the hills.
Yep.
The far-flung hills at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I still didn't get anything half as mad as this.
Maybe you needed to be in New South Wales. That's where it's all happening.
I'm happy to have never had this situation.
Yeah, fair enough. Davo's happy to be in this situation. I never knew that was 7 years good luck, but there you go. Anyway, at this point, Steve, we actually cut over to the pizza store, would you believe? The actual fat pizza store. Where Bobo, he turns on the telly to see a news article. This is where an actual bit of plot kicks in, unbelievably. And on this telly, the newsreader is talking about rumours of Dwayne Carey and Claudia McPherson having an affair. Now, this is an old TV trick of exposition by news story. So anytime you want to get something across, amazingly, someone can always turn on the TV and the news is always on, talking about the exact thing they want information about. Now, the newsreader, by the way, Steve, is a dude called John Mangos. And he's a very recognisable face who was on the 9 network. And then he was the presenter for Eyewitness News on Channel 10.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got his own chat show on Channel 7 for 2 years called At Home with John Mangos. And it has been said that he was like the first high-profile Greek-Australian TV host or newsreader on Australian commercial TV.
There you go.
There you go. Anyway, Dwayne Carey's on the news saying, "I love my wife. I married her, didn't I?" Which I think is an objectively funny line because it's so obvious. Anyway, we cut back to the car and they pull over in the sticks for what the caption calls a pee-pee stop. And according to the caption, it's now 12:22 p.m. So the boys, they all get out of the car and they line up to take a piss against this farm fence. And Paulie says, no, don't do pissings here because it's an electrified fence. And so they move away from the electric fence. And they all start weeing, and there's a body of a roadkill kangaroo in front of them, which, to be fair, is a pretty common sight on most country roads. They're weeing on this kangaroo, and Habib starts mocking the poor old dead kangaroo, which is poor form, to say the least. And we've got another clip.
Look, boys, it's one of those stupid dead animals. Hey, Dula! Have a look! It's Skippy! You stupid animal! Look both ways before you cross! Crikey! You're dead, Stooge! Look at me! I get killed by running on the road. I'm scared of headlights. Go son of a crikey, get my...
You've got to love how they choose a spot that's basically in full view of the highway.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of trees to get behind, I don't think so. It was more of
You're
a
telling me
field.
they couldn't have found a tree?
Well, they could have parked somewhere where there was a tree.
Yeah, there's a rest stop every 5 kilometres.
Yeah, I reckon so. After that hilarious scene of pure genius, Steve.
You mean desecrating our national animal?
So yes, they'd abused this kangaroo and they'd started kicking it, and then it springs up and it starts kicking the crap out of them, and we hear "Eye of the Tiger."
Goodness.
Anyway, so Paulie gets some good hits in, but then the kangaroo gets him right in the bollocks and he falls on the electric fence. And he's just going zzz on this electric fence. Now, I should point out here, Steve, that in most... I watch a lot of YouTube channels that love bad movies, and they specialise in vanity projects where someone writes, produces, directs, does the music, does everything themselves. And they generally follow a pattern where this person is the greatest secret agent to ever live, or the greatest kung fu person to ever live, and then they're always getting with the chicks and they do all this stuff. So these vanity projects... Whereas,
sounds a bit like Garth Marenghi.
Yeah, it could be, yes. But Paul Fenech clearly doesn't mind taking the piss out of himself and making himself the butt of jokes and all that, which I think is quite a rarity. I wouldn't describe his sitcoms as vanity projects. I just think no one else was going to do it. And maybe he just liked to have total control. Who can tell? But anyway, at least... The point I'm making is that he allowed himself to have the crap kicked out of him, which is something that Steven Seagal generally wouldn't do in his movies. He doesn't let anyone beat him in a fight or anything like that, you know.
He could have simply not written the scene
Yeah.
where they weed on Skippy,
Yeah.
dead
That's
Skippy,
right. So,
and then had dead Skippy come back to life and get
kick
into
the
a
crap
fight
out
with
of
him and then fall
Yeah.
into the electric fence.
That's right. So I say he was being very good at writing that scene and allowing himself to be beaten up by a dead kangaroo that's reeking of wee.
It looked like a real kangaroo.
Yeah, I reckon it totally was a real kangaroo. So someone's got to be behind it.
No, it would have been a dead kangaroo. Surely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they found a dead kangaroo,
Yeah, and started
Weed on
manipulating
it,
it like
and
a
then-
puppet. Yeah.
played around with it.
Do you reckon it was improvised on the day? Oh, there's a dead kangaroo there. Let's create a
It
scene.
reeks of improvisation to me.
It reeks of wee. Where are we? Oh my God. Anyway, so what I also liked about this scene, Steve, is Big Tough Rocky, who's normally smashing the hell out of cops. He goes running off at the sight of this kangaroo. So he's sprinting full pelt away from this kangaroo. And Habib's cowering in fright because he's a total wuss. Tula is screaming out of the car, complete chaos. Anyway, we cut back to Davo, who's in bed with one of the lesbians, while the other one sneaks back in. And she says, right, if you're going to do this, I'm going to cheat too by joining in. And Davo can see this quickly getting out of control, and he tries to escape, but they pull out a paddle of some description, and they say, you're going nowhere, little man. And he has to escape by chucking a brown eye at them. And as they're reeling in horror, he jumps out of bed and runs off in his undies. And we hear the Offspring singing Pretty Fly for a White Guy. So the music's killing it again.
Goodness.
Back in the car, sometime later, they pull into a rural servo, which is a petrol station, would you believe? And it's a huge one, motorway services, as they might say in the UK. And it sort of looks like a big mosque, really. And so we got a voiceover of Paulie saying, oh, this place is bound to have chocky foods. Now, he's not talking about chocolate here, Steve. He's referring to ethnic Australian stuff. And all this sort of stuff is choco stuff in Paulie's vernacular. So, in fact, his production company, Paul Fenech's production company, later down the line was called Anti-Choco Productions, from memory. There's sort of a catch-all for, Lebanese, Greek, Maltese, Italian, and lots of other countries in Europe, no doubt. Anyway, so they're at this servo. So this whole scene is very much taking the mickey out of both the hillbilly Anglo-Australians and the city-dwelling ethnic second-generation bods like himself. So while Paulie's negotiating with his Aussie chick behind the counter, Rocky, being the criminal that he is, he steals a 24-pack of sodas and he shoves it up his jumper as if no one's going to see a massive...
Sodas? What's a soda?
Soda, yeah. Well, I couldn't see what soft drink it was, so I used the generic American term. Yeah, a 24-pack of soft drink. Yeah, that's right.
Soft drink to you.
Atula, meanwhile, she's in the back seat with Habib. She convinces him to get it on with her in the back of the car. So I think they've had some eckies as well. Habib's definitely taken one because suddenly Tula looks like this much thinner and cuter chick. But anyway, there's more of Paulie and Rocky asking for gelati and falafel and kebabs. But this rural chick behind the counter has no idea what they're talking about. And she goes, oh, we got meat pies. And eventually they settle on a pasty and all this sort of stuff. But anyway, we cut over to Davo doing another delivery. Turns up at this very fancy house where these two twin chicks say, oh, it's our 18th birthday and our parents have gone out. Do you want to come in and hang around for some fun? And naturally, Davo says yes. And we instantly cut to a point of view shot looking up at Davo, thrusting away with his headphones on. And then we cut forward in time to him saying, oh, thanks, girls. And he's walking away and they've given him a nice new birthday bong and sent him on his way. So he's just had some, presumably, awesome sex and a nice new bong. And he's got $1,000 in his pocket from the petrol station. And he's having a tremendous day so far, Davo.
Where did the...
Remember at the petrol station, he went in there and this alarm goes off.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's the cops. So Dave hits the floor and he puts his hands behind his head because he thinks he's being busted for something. And then the Indian guy behind the counter says, congratulations, sir. You're our 1 millionth customer. You've won $1,000.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, so Davo's on his way. Now, it's time, Steve. I know you love these to play a round of what it's worth now.
No.
Yes. So $1,000 dues back in 2003. Now we're 20 years on here, Steve. Do you want to have a stab at what that $1,000 dues is worth now?
This is a lot easier than on the previous episode, which was based in...
the 50 sesterces or whatever it was.
Ancient Rome. Yeah.
What would the value of $1,000 purchase you back in the day? What would you need the equivalent now to purchase the same value?
$1,800.
Oh, dude, you're totally there, and I'll tell you why. So, when you put it into the inflation calculator by the Reserve Bank of Australia, it only does it up to 2023. That was $1,700. Now, we are halfway through 2024 and we've seen a fair old whack of inflation. So I reckon your 1,800 is absolutely bang on.
Right.
So well done there, Steve. You've got your finger on the pulse of inflation in Australia.
Oh.
Oh. Anyway, as I said, Davo's having a hell of a good day. He goes back to the shop. Now, the joke, of course, is that if Paulie and Habibi hadn't lied to take the day off and go to Melbourne, they would have done these amazing deliveries and they would have gotten the money and the sex that Davo got. But they didn't, and he did. So anyway, Bobo slaps Davo around the head for smiling, because Bobo's a psycho. He's constantly beating his staff and cutting people up with chainsaws and so on. But anyway, the road trippers reach Canberra, the capital city of Australia, where Habib and Rocky get out to graffiti Parliament House, or some other posh building. Habib spells dickheads without a C, so Rocky has to run over and correct his terrible spelling and do some more graffiti, and I won't tell you what it says. But the gang speed off after this, but after all this abuse, the car breaks down with a bad fuel pump, and now they're stuck in Canberra, but they're stuck near a sex shop, which they go into. Now, Steve, have you been to Canberra?
Yep.
Yep, I've been to Canberra. Can you tell the listener about Canberra being allowed to do everything while other states and territories can't?
Well, yeah. Fireworks is a thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm not sure about sex shops.
Oh, well, before the
things,
advent of the internet and easy access to pornography, you could get whatever the hell you wanted in Canberra, whereas, certain things weren't available freely in other states of Australia. And I'll point out to the listener that this is where the politicians are, and this is where they all do their business. And while they're in Canberra, they clearly like to have a good time, so they make everything tickety-boo for themselves, while the rest of us can go shove it up our jumpers. I'm probably being a bit unfair here, but then why would, in this one tiny, tiny fraction of the country where Parliament just happens to meet, in this tiny little Australian capital
territory... It's a capital territory.
Yeah.
It's not a state.
So they legalise, they just legalise everything for themselves, and other states can't have it. So there you go. I always found that very interesting. But that explains why they're going into this sex shop in 2003, where back then you could have probably got some pretty racy stuff that wasn't freely available on the internet at the time. Oh, blimey. So Paulie and Rocky and Tula and Habib, they're going around looking at stuff. Rocky's stealing everything that isn't nailed down and shoving that up his jumper. Now, Habib, he's a bit of a perv, much like Paulie, so he gets this sex doll, and somehow out of nowhere he's got a kebab, and he's motioning with a kebab, thrusting it towards a certain area of this sex doll. And Tula catches him, and she goes, "That's sick. Who'd have sex with a doll?" Now, the joke there, of course, Steve, is that she sees nothing wrong with having sex with a kebab. Anyway, at this point, Steve, you'll be shocked to learn that we've got a C plot. Dun, dun, dun. Oh. Yeah, I know. So there's a phone call to the shop for Bobo about his Asian mail-order bride, Lin Chow, who's taking her driving test. And he says, "Good luck, lovey duck." And he says if there's any problems, she should hand the envelope full of cash to the tester and say, repeat after me, he says to her, "Bribey, bribey." And she goes, "Bribey, bribey." So that's setting the scene for the C plot. So she's got to try and pass her driving test. Now, back at the sex shop, they're sort of getting ready to move on, and Paulie's made some purchases, which, as we're about to find out, he uses to repair the car. Meanwhile, Davo's out on a delivery again, and he's been pulled over by the cops because there's a hell of a lot of weed smoke coming out of his car. And as the cop is ordering him to get out of the car, Lin Chow, on her driving test, comes reversing at great speed out of nowhere and flattens this cop. And there's, meat flying all over the place and blood everywhere and bits of flesh, and the cop is screaming. And Davo just drives off, still stoned out of his mind. And Lin Chow looks at the driving tester dude and says, "Bribey, bribey." And anyway.
I think the time for that might have come and gone.
It depends how much money's in the envelope, doesn't it? So, back in the purple car, they're crossing the border, finally, into Victoria, getting closer to Melbourne. And they're all in a really good mood now because, Paulie's fixed the car with the items from the sex shop. And let's have a clip.
Paulie, the car's going good, you lad.
Yeah, man, what I did was I fixed the fuel pump with one of them penis pumpers. And, man, I got the alternator, going by using the plastic vaginas. And you know that rattle that was in the front end? I fixed it with this vibrating hand. I don't know how it fixed it, but it's fixed.
F***ing, I need some chicks, Paulie, man. Drive faster.
Now, at this point, Steve, I want to stop. And I want to talk about Habib's mini catchphrase of referring to everyone as Yule. Did you notice this or not? Nope. Really? Oh, dude. Okay, now, I believe this is something that Tahir made up. But it did catch on in some parts of Australia. And I have always wanted an excuse to play a supercut of Habib saying Yule. So here it is.
Yule, I gave it to a good, Yule. I gave it to a good. Who is it, Yule? What a sick idea, Yule. That's it, mate. Blend in with the yoga people, mate. The cops will never get me.
Okay, everyone, so we're going to move into Down Dog following me.
Down dog, down penis, Yule. We're into everything, Yule. Paulie, it's Habib, Yule. Rocky, where you going, Yule? I'm getting really hungry, I swear. Oh, Yule. Yule.
I saw you shaking your head again, Dave.
Is this just something he says to
shan't
punctuate
tolerate it.
every sentence?
Yeah, this is like, you know, how I used to say man at the end of every sentence. Or dude. I think it's fantastic. So, at the accident scene where Lin Chow had run over the cop, the whole place now is swarmed by cops, and Lin Chow's holding out the envelope to anyone who's going to listen, and she's crying and she's saying bribey, bribey, and Bobo has to leave the shop and go and save her, so he's left Davo alone in the pizza store. Now, Davo has been at least 10 minutes without a cone at this point, and he's got no bong and no rolly papers, so he rolls up a bunch of weed in this pizza base, and not a, you know, crispy one or anything, so in this dough, and he tries to use that as a joint to no avail, and he's trying to light it all up, and then, of course, it gets hot, and Davo's sort of coughing, but he's now that this customer walks into the shop, and it's supermodel Claudia McPherson, and, of course, she now knows that this guy, Paulie, who took the photos of her, works at this shop. So she's come to get the phone so that she can get the photos off it so it doesn't ruin her career. Elaborate, Steve. You're shaking your head again. I want to hear all
How does she know about the pizza shop and that Paulie's from the pizza shop?
Well, she's probably got connections. So I'm assuming, and you're making an extremely good point, Steve, so let's speculate. So he's probably rung ahead to No Idea magazine and said, listen, I've got these snaps, right? But somehow she's used her connections to find out who Paulie is, and clearly now she knows where he works, and she's coming to get this phone so she can delete the photos off it. And she's got something like 10 grand to give him just to not release the photos.
Perhaps we should have had a little scene in between somewhere along the line.
Yeah. Might have been
where
helpful.
That phone call was, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, she's come in, and the only person in there is Davo, and he's got a mouthful of smoke, and also he's holding this burning hot stuff in his hands, the dough with the weed in it and all that sort of stuff, and she's talking to him and explaining things, and he's just acting really strangely, and she's getting very fed up, and then finally Davo sort of screams. Claudia's waving money around at him and yelling. She's trying to buy the pictures, and she calls him a useless bonghead, and clearly it's not going particularly well for her or him. And then we cut back to the car where the foursome are entering Melbourne, which I've called Australia's wankiest city, but arguably one of the best. And I believe this entry to Melbourne was covered in the opening clip, if I've put my clips in correctly. Now, storytelling-wise here, Steve, we're now transitioning from a real-time thing where we've seen everything happening in order as it happens, and now we move into this sort of flashback mode, because it's now the next day, and Paulie's back at the pizza store at work telling Davo all about the Melbourne trip, and he'll say something to Davo, and then we see the flashback. Now, did you notice this transition as you're watching?
Well, it's quite jarring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So in flashbacks, Tula is sick in the car in Melbourne, and Paulie kicks everyone out because he's got to go off to meet the chick, and he's got to go to No Idea magazine. So this leaves Rocky and Habib and Tula at an AFL game. You know, he kicks them out outside the Telstra Dome. So they go into this AFL game, and this is where we get a bit of sort of New South Wales rugby culture versus your Melbourne Australian rules football culture. They're two very different games. Rocky and Habib mistake the umpire's hand signals to signify a goal. So they make a certain hand signal to signify a goal. And Rocky and Habib seem to think, you know, they're mistaking the umpire's hand signals for the Lebanese FU hand gesture. And because Rocky's a very volatile person and he takes no guff and he's always wanting a fight, he storms the pitch to bash the crap out of this umpire. And then what's happening here is they're clearly intercutting footage from a massively packed out AFL game, you know, where the Richmond Tigers are playing, to a local oval of some sort with witches' hats for goalposts. And they're doing their best to try and cover up the fact that they were never going to get permission to storm an actual AFL match, but it's quite obvious when they're cutting back and forth. So this umpire's at someone's local oval with the witches' hats, and they run onto this pitch. and blah, 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 blah. It's still funny and it works. Meanwhile, Paulie's gone off to No Idea magazine. He sold the photos of Dwayne and Claudia, and we get a related flashback to Claudia McPherson hassling Davo in the pizza shop again for the photos. And he says to her, she goes, "Where are the photos?" And she's about to sort of beat him up, and he sort of looks down and says, "In my pants." And she goes, "Oh, I can see how this is going to be." So we infer from this that he got some off the supermodel. Anyway, Paulie then visits in flashback this married chick's house and he hooks up with her. Now, her fetishes have taken a step up now. So she doesn't just want to do kinky sex with him and have a good time. She now wants to do all of this in public. And this is where we go to all the great tourist spots of Melbourne that they film at. So they're at the casino, they're on a tram, they're at the train station, they're at Luna Park, up in the big Ferris wheel sort of thing. So Paulie's dressed up in a red rubber cowboy outfit, sort of very shiny vinyl stuff. And so Paulie and the chick get spotted at the train station by the married chick's husband, who's returning home early from Serbia, and a chase ensues. Now, this big dude, our mate the magistrate, Con, looking like Alexei Sale, he's chasing this ridiculously dressed Paulie through the Melbourne nightlife district. And Paulie's running as fast as he can back to his hotel room. Getting back to the hotel room with seconds to spare, and you can hear the thump, thump, thump of the big dude trying to kick down the door. And I'm going to let Paulie take up the story from here.
What do I see when I get in there? There's Habib and Rocky. They've got like cheerleaders, AFL's players, and like Habib's knocked out Tula with the Rohypnol, so he can like have a chance with the skinny chicks.
Paulie, join the party, you there. Come on.
Open that door, you bastard!
The husband's banging on the door. He wants to kill me.
I kill you!
Suddenly, out of the blue, there's Dwayne Carey's the AFL player.
Hey! You!
And lucky I got champion climbing skills, mate. I get out the window.
So yes, Paulie did escape from the enraged dudes, but he ended up having to give a strip show in his kinky red cowboy suit. Now that he's told Davo the whole story, Bobo storms over, this is in the present day, and yells at both Davo and Paulie, and he thrusts a pizza box in each of their hands and tells them to bugger off and do these deliveries. And at the very end of the episode, Habib walks in late, and he's covered in hickeys from Tula, and Bobo thinks they're splotches and that Habib is sick and he's got some sort of weird condition, so he sends Habib home. And the credits roll, Steve, but at the very end, do you remember this? Clearly they realised they forgot to resolve the C-plot with Lin Chow. So what did they do, Steve? Any idea?
No.
Lin Chow, she's fine. I bribed the cop.
Why was the C plot in there at all?
I don't know, because they didn't really need it.
Surely they obviously had far too much to try and cram in anyway.
Yep, so why do they need to have Lin Chow taking a driving test and then running over a cop that had pulled Davo over? They could have cut out that scene of Davo getting pulled over, and then you wouldn't need this entire Lin Chow driving test stuff. But I'll tell the listener what they actually did.
Right, okay.
Which, if I hadn't put in a clip, is that basically the credits are rolling. They've gone, oh God, we didn't tell people what happened with this stuff. And so we hear a voiceover from Bobo saying, Lin Chow, she's fine. I bribed the cop. And I thought you'd love that.
Bribed a policeman to cover up the fact that
he's horrifically injured.
In broad daylight and in full public view of scores of witnesses, she had run over and maimed another police officer.
Yeah.
Did she get her licence, though?
Oh, no, that's a bloody good question. I'm going to assume yes. But I think that's the first time in Sitcom Showdown we've ever seen someone draw attention to the fact that they hadn't resolved something by a 1 second voiceover when the credits are running.
Do you remember not long ago we did something and they had a resolution to one of the plot points after the credits started rolling and you'd never got as far as watching
Yes! And neither had you until you pointed it out to me.
Oh, no.
You'd watched it.
I think I caught it on the third rewatch or something like that.
So is
by
this...
pure fluke.
So the lesson is, just like watching a Marvel movie, don't leave...
Never leave it to the credits.
Yeah, watch it to the very end. Don't just assume...
No, I'm saying to the people making the show.
This is why I think
put it all in before you get to the credits.
Cold opens and stuff after the credits. Look, just make it simple. Have the opening sequence, then do the show, and then have the closing credits.
That's it.
Simple.
That's it.
No need to stuff around.
Don't try and be a Marvel movie.
Yeah. Anyway, what a way to finish with that little voiceover there. Now, thank you, Steve, for your patience in sitting through all of this. And this might be one of the longest episodes we've ever done. And thank you to the listener as well, because there was a lot of stuff in this short 26-minute episode, and we had to cut back and forth. And plus, we had all that discussion before, but we have reached the end, Steve. Now, as I've mentioned there, the technique with this show is to very much keep all the insane action just rolling and rolling and rolling. And if it doesn't come to a satisfactory end, who cares, because so much has happened. Everyone's had their fights and their sex and their drugs and the burnouts, so who cares? And I think that's what they're aiming for. And over the years, Paul's done a lot of overseas specials and road trip specials, and what that means is he's able to go to, wherever it is, be it Thailand and Vegas, and he's gone to all these places with all these shows. And it's because it's paid for by government broadcasting, he's done it all on the taxpayer's dime to go and do a lot of tourism and drive hot cars and have a lot of fun and drink. But I guess when you're over there, it is a ton of work. It's not all glamour. But what a score, man. Just go, I've created this show and I've just decided this one's going to be set in Vegas.
I thought you were going to say he scheduled a 2-week shoot and then
shot everything
spent
on
the
the
first
day.
13 days gambling and whatnot, and then decided to cram in the shooting into the final day.
Well, you never know, do you? Anyhow, as the rain comes down outside, Steve, that brings us to the end where we share our thoughts. And you have a whole 3 lines of notes there in terms of dot points.
Well, we've already discussed some of those things.
So you...
it would have been a nightmare to do the synopsis just because the edits and the scenes are so short and sharp. It's a nightmare to try and put that into some kind of coherent format. So, yes, I appreciate the work that must have gone into that. And yeah, like I said, I thought that the shortness of those scenes might have had something to do with the music. Some very notable pieces of music in there, and I thought, how did they get away with this? Listeners, you can't, unless you watch it, you won't see that a lot of the shots are like right in people's faces. So it's right in people's faces. It's short, sharp, noisy scenes. The people are shouting, and it's
chaotic Dutch angles and stuff as well.
Yeah, it's pretty full on visually and everything.
It certainly is. I'm going to rewind to the music, as you mentioned that so I've got a little bit of a listy poo here. Stop the Rock by Fatboy Slim, which is an absolute ripper. Pretty Fly for a White Guy by The Offspring we heard. So Dean Martin has 2 songs in this. There's Kiss and That's Amore. We had a snatch, no pun intended, of 2 Live Crew's Me So Horny. There was Frenzal Rom with Never Had So Much Fun, which is an Australian anthem, if ever there's been one. There's Nelly with Kelly Rowland with Dilemma. There was a little bit of Cypress Hill's I Want to Get High. Then there was Everybody's Free to Feel Good by Rosella. Steve, we had a little fraction of Timey Kangaroo Down by He Who Must Not Be Named. We had the Jacksons' Can You Feel It? And of course, Eye of the Tiger, which is a all-time classic.
Oh.
And that's, there was a lot of generic techno in this show as well, and there's a lot of Australian rap in this show as well. So there's, for every song I've popped in, there's a whole bunch I wasn't able to recognise.
So do you know that because they had them in the credits?
No, I was looking for music in the credits, man. Couldn't find any.
They didn't even put it in the credits?
Well, I don't think so. I could be wrong on that. I've been wrong before. Right, negatives. Well... Do you want to go first, or should I just tell you what I think the negatives are?
Yeah, why don't you go first? Your list might be shorter than mine.
So I've put here, not very uplifting.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's not very uplifting. You don't finish an episode of Pizza and go, I feel so much better about the world now. What a marvellous place we live in, which is what some art does to you. You know what I mean? But not on this occasion. It does model extremely bad behaviour, so it's not for the kiddies. And it is sort of extremely lowbrow, cheap, exploitative stuff. And as we mentioned before, SBS these days is extremely politically correct TV organisation, and the change in 20 years is a complete flip. Yeah, so they gave multicultural Australians free rein to tell stories of any kind, but I don't think they'd be doing that now with this particular kind of multicultural storytelling.
I couldn't see it.
However, the commercial stations are like giddy up, cowboy, and come over here and make some shows for us.
Partly because
Established track record.
shows, even though it's a show produced by someone of that ethnicity, it's showing them in what they would probably consider to be, negative stereotype kind of lights and things like that.
Yeah.
Plus all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And for the last of the negatives, yes, it's you can't say it's high budget by any stretch of the imagination, and there's not a lot of recognizable actors who actually do a hell of a lot of acting. But if you want action, well, I'll let you list your negatives.
Well, I don't really have a list, but we talked about that frenetic editing and the audio-visual onslaught, which it is, and maybe it's just because I'm not 18 anymore, but that's not really that's not really my speed.
Yes, discovering this show when you're older than 50 might not be the way to go.
Yeah, that's right. They probably didn't have many 50-year-olds watching it at the time.
No.
Yeah. So that, and obviously the plot seems to be a bit of an afterthought. And in terms of moral lines, are probably, we all have a moral line of what we'll watch or consume and what we won't, and this one's probably not something I'd choose to watch.
No.
If Jeff hadn't chosen it and said, watch this. Yeah, so it's questionable behaviour.
Yes. No, and fair enough too, Stephen. Everything you're saying is quite right.
Now that can be...
I would watch it, and I have done millions of times.
Obviously, we watch lots of shows and talk about lots of shows where there's questionable behaviour, but sometimes you have they get a consequence for their behaviour, or you've got people who are kind of contrasted with them, and
you can't show a virtuous person without having a bad person to contrast it against.
Yeah, and vice versa. So this show doesn't really have. I can't.
Who can you point to and say what an upstanding, spiffing person?
Yeah, so some of these balancing elements that you see in other sitcoms probably aren't evident here.
Yeah, in a way, because Paulie doesn't do drugs and all that, and he wants to remain sober while he's driving and all that sort of stuff. And, there's nothing wrong with wanting to visit town and try and get it on with a very sexually adventurous lady and do a bit of tabloid journalism photo selling. So, he's the closest we're going to get to a spiffing fella.
All right, so he committed adultery with this woman for the second time. And was essentially blackmailing the other couple for money.
He didn't blackmail them.
Well,
he didn't involve them in the process at all.
Okay, if he had been at the pizza shop when she arrived with her 10 grand,
would he have taken the cash?
He would have taken it in a heartbeat.
It would have saved him a bit of work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and he did hire a car, dear listener, and Steve-O, using a fake ID, which is a little bit naughty.
And he's the moral, most
leading
moral
light
of the
yeah.
Yeah.
Just wait till I get onto the positives. Right. Should I do that? Or
sure.
So, locations, dude. Now, you got to give them props for location work. And so they went to, they were in a car park. They were at a petrol station. Habib's house. They were filming in the car, which in those days wasn't as easy as it is now. They're at the lesbian's house. They're at another service station. They're at the twins' house. They went to Canberra, various places around there, including Parliament House and the sex shop. They were back at the pizza store. They're in the motel room, and then there was pretty much 8 or 9 places all around Melbourne, sometimes during peak hour, and at one point at the top of a Ferris wheel. And I say that's got to take the cake for any sitcom we've covered here on this show. As far as location work goes, that's amazing. And that's it in the positives as well. So
the location work, obviously they didn't even ask permission for half of this stuff, which is a
difficult to
let's
say.
put that to one side, but
right,
it's not like they set the shots up carefully or anything like that. It was basically just them running around with a couple of handheld cameras or something like that, wasn't it?
I don't know. We're making a lot of assumptions here, Steve. We don't have the facts on that. Like the the SBS would have, I'd say they'd be pretty strict on getting permissions, wouldn't they?
I've just invented this whole fiction in my head that it's something like the French
Gorilla.
Connection, where they, You know, the famous shots they took of the car chase under the railway. The railway line, and they did it without permission, and they're just barreling through there at top speed and everything like that.
Could be. I'm just saying that may not be the case. Yes, positives, right? So fast-paced, as you said, and there's so much action. So if you like action, you know, there's fights and burnouts and sexy time, and there's the humour of embarrassment, and there's slapstick and drugs and stuff. At least 20 locations. And another thing about everything Paul Fenech does is it gives ordinary people a chance to be on telly, which is amazing. And getting back to the locations, that now acts with decades that have gone by as a time capsule of how things looked on the streets. So you've got this show and they've been to like 20 odd locations. It is a very good snapshot of the infrastructure of, you know, the joint. I know I'm trying to highball this a bit, Steve-O, but it's also true.
It's a cultural snapshot.
It is a cultural snapshot. Yes, so the buildings, the businesses, the cars, even the phones, I dare say, Steve. So that does have some value as opposed to a studio-bound sitcom, which doesn't tend to have that sort of aspect to it. Now, getting back to Paul. He's doing this on a low budget. He's writing, directing and starring in it, going on location with less than ideal lighting, and being on location is horrible for sound recording. It's all bad circumstances, so I think it's impressive from a sheer work ethic point of view for this dude trying to coordinate all this stuff, and then he has to star in it as well with all these stunts, the physical punishment for him personally as well. No embarrassment, you know, he takes the piss out of himself as well as everyone else, and he's trying to direct a lot of first-time performers, right? So this show's definitely got its faults, and I'm totally with you on that, man. I'm just taking my hat off to him for the sheer hard work, and the hard work of these poor people doing the sound and the camera stuff, and filming in public just sucks, you know? So that's my view on all of that. Any comment on all of that, Steve, or not really?
No, I can accept the fact that he's put his heart and soul into it, in all those different roles he's taken on, and wasn't shy to embarrass himself in the process as well. So yeah.
So anyway, this show, in my humble opinion, it is a lot of fun, right? So to take parallels with other forms of entertainment, watching Pizza or Housos or Swift and Shift is like going to the wrestling or the drag races or something like that. Whereas if you're watching Mother and Son or Frontline and the higher rated sitcoms, that's more like going to the theatre or the opera or something like that, if you know what I mean. But sometimes it's cool to just, you know, set aside the thought-provoking sitcoms about power, or the heartfelt sitcoms about family and love, or the well-plotted sitcoms that are an art in themselves, like your Seinfelds and stuff. And you set that aside and just sit down and watch some incredibly wild, break all the rules, high-octane, fighting, snorting, smoking, sexy, off-colour, crazy comedy. Yeah.
You rest your case.
I rest my case, Your Honour. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, it was good. About time we got back to an Australian sitcom. So from that point of view, I think it was a good thing.
That's
for the rest of it.
All right. Well, again, I do genuinely thank you for sitting through all of this, Steve, because I know it's not something you would have wanted to spend 2 hours on a Friday night. And same goes for you, dear listener. But, you know, here we are. And again, in this new format world we find ourselves in, where we're not nominating things for the Hall of Fame. Yes, I had no expectations that Pizza would enter the Hall of Fame, but it is darn worth talking about.
Alrighty.
Anything else to say before we wrap up?
No.
Well, all right. In that case, we'll be back in around 1 to 2 months.
Yep.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you, listeners.
Bye.
Bye.
Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown, when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.